Alrighty. So, I just finished my second viewing of Spider-Man Homecoming, and I wanted to see it twice before I did any kind of reviews for it. I usually like to let it settle, because I sometimes just get caught up in it the first time, and I will just love everything just because of it's the first time, and I don't want to do that for this. So I watched it again, and I still love it, but I was able to more easily flesh out the things I had problems with, which there's a few things. Some of them are nitpicky, some of them are things I just don't like, whereas some of them are things that I would have changed because I think it would be better if they were that way. But I guess that happens in every movie for people, though. I'll start with the things I outright didn't like first. So, I did not like Flash Thompson's portrayal. I can say that right up front. I did not like how they decided to do Flash. I feel it's the worst of the three different versions we've seen of it. The one that's still closest to the comic book, how Flash is in the comic books, is the one in the Amazing Spider-Man series. I don't remember who he's played by, but it's like he's supposed to be a physical jock, not very smart bully, who actually has a heart of gold, and maybe not a heart of gold, but he's actually not that bad once time goes on and he settles down a bit, and he actually has a heart and turns out to be smart in his own ways. And I think the only movie that's shown that so far is the Spider-Man series. In this one, he's just I don't get what they were trying to do. I mean, I guess they're trying to imply that Peter goes to a science school, like an advanced school. So if Flash goes there, he has to also be smart, and he's just obnoxious and selfish, I guess, in this one. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't know why Peter would be bothered by him, because even before the Spider Bite, he would have been bigger than him. I mean, like, bigger than him, smarter than him. There's nothing behind this Flash, and I didn't much care for it. It's hard to, I guess, it doesn't really make sense. I just didn't like it. I didn't like how they did Flash in this one. Especially, I'm quite a big fan of the Agent Venom series, and you get to see, like, the kind of person Flash really is there, and that's not who they showed in this movie. Like as I said, I get that they wanted to make him a smarter guy because they're in a science school, and I get they wanted to show that not all bullies have to be physical, but that's not who Flash Thompson was. Like, that's the whole thing, is that he's the opposite of Peter Parker in high school. Like, where Peter's really smart, Flash is not so smart. Where Peter was really nerdy and skinny and weak-looking at first, before the Spider Bite, of course. Flash was the opposite. He was big, he was bulky, he was jockey, he was popular. He's supposed to be everything Peter's not, and then you see that they do have some things in common as they get out of high school, as they become friends, and that wasn't there in this one. I'm going to preface this second thing that I didn't like by saying I did like Michelle. She made me laugh at times. I did enjoy her character that they did show. I did not like how she turned out to be MJ at the end, because that's not who MJ is, and I know that, like, it felt so forced. They're like, oh, we need a Mary Jane, let's make a Mary Jane who's not Mary Jane, and just call her MJ even though she's not. And it just felt like a cheap plug for them, and it was completely unnecessary. Like, Michelle as a character worked on her own. They didn't need to put that in, and I didn't like it in either viewing. I rolled my eyes both times, especially since they spent so much of the time since she was cast saying that she's not Mary Jane, she's not MJ, and yet she's not Mary Jane, but she's, like, they're calling her MJ, and that's just stupid. Like, does that mean we're never gonna have any Mary Jane whatsoever? Is she supposed to be some different version of Mary Jane? Like, what? I don't like that. I don't like what they did there, and I would have preferred they did something else. Yeah, I would have just preferred she stayed Michelle, and she still could have been a love interest for Peter for a couple movies, and then Mary Jane or Gwen could come in University or later on in the series if they go that far. They didn't have to try to force that into the first movie. It was unnecessary, it did not feel natural, and it felt forced. And it was such a random moment to bring it up to. Like, my friends call me MJ. Like, what? Nothing in the movie built to them being friends. They just kind of talked to each other a couple times. So I didn't like that. I guess, and these ones go into more like nitpicky, because while I don't like them and I thought they could have been different, the evidence for these things were there. So like I felt Toomes, Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, he switched really fast from just being this kind of nice guy who had shitty luck when Damage Control showed up to being the bad guy who can kill people without remorse and is willing to do all these illegal things. It felt so sudden from the guy that you see at the beginning, very beginning of the movie, to the guy you see the 8 years later or however long it is. It's just very sudden and it feels weird. And I get what they're trying to say in the movie is that he's willing to do anything for his family, but why does his family need him to do this? And why did he keep doing it for 8 years? Like, I'm sure he could have made back the money that he lost when Damage Control took over and everything. At some point in those 8 years from selling all those weapons, like, it gets to a point where he's not doing it for that reason anymore, even though they kind of keep pushing that he is. And yeah, he just goes from like not killing anyone, like where they kind of keep violence out of it, to being like extremely violent, like at a drop of a hat, even though like, he kills the guy accidentally, but he doesn't seem too bothered by it. And then next you see him threatening a bunch of innocent people on the ferry, and then he's threatening innocent people when he threatens Peter and all the ones he loves. It feels like a big jump from where they started, but again, as I said, that stuff's in the movie. Like, you can see what they were doing and where they were going with it, so it's not really a big deal. It could have been done better, but I guess they had to work with the time that they had, so I got that. And the other kind of nitpicky thing, there's a few more, but I did not like how Peter in this seems almost less experienced or clumsier than he did in Civil War. Now, to be fair, we saw, like, when you compare the two movies, we see a lot less of Spider-Man in Civil War than we do here. But he seems a lot more functional in Civil War than he is in this movie, because he's, and again, there's little things in the movie that go, well, this is why he's clumsier, this is why he's not as good, because he's facing these different, like, scenarios for the first time, like fighting a flying guy rather than just fighting thugs, or fighting new weapons, or having to maneuver around a suburb rather than in the city, so he's less good with using his webs there and things like that. Like, that's all there, and I get it, but he could have been a little less clumsy, a little more capable, that like he was in Civil War, in the film, without, like, they didn't, it just feels like he reverted back, like he went backwards a little bit in skill, which was kind of weird. And I know, talking to my friends, I wasn't after seeing it the first time, I know I wasn't the only one who thought that he was a little bit more skilled in Civil War than he was here. Because they want to give, like, him peril and reasons why he's not the best right away, and I get that, and that's why it's not a detracting thing from the movie, but it could have been done differently. They could have come up with other ways to give him difficulties in fighting the Vulture. And the scene where the scene in the suburbs is hilarious, where he's just trying to get around and he has no idea how. Just unnecessary, I guess, in the long run. There's ways that they could have done it differently that I would have liked more, personally. But yeah, that's just like I said, that's a nitpick. Because I was perfectly fine with what we got there. Could have been different. Could have possibly been better if done differently, but it is what it is. That's what we got, so that's what we deal with. And then the other thing that's kind of nitpicky is the removal of the spider sense. So yeah, they said that he doesn't have the spider sense in this, and then there's not really many occasions in this where the spider sense could have been used, but there are some. And I mean, I'm on the side that says that in Civil War, it does look like there are moments where he has the spider sense, particularly when he's fighting Winter Soldier and Falcon. You really think there's moments where it's like that's either spider sense or he's just really lucky. So I don't know why they felt the need to remove it. Hopefully it comes back soon, or they have an explanation for it. But that was kind of silly. Again, doesn't hurt the movie that it's not in there, but it would have been better if they just gave him his spider sense, especially because of Civil War. It almost feels like this movie should have been set before Civil War. I know why it couldn't have been, because like that means they would have had to have written out Tony, or would have had to introduce Peter and Tony to each other a while before this, but before Civil War, I mean. So I get why it's not set after, why it's not set before, I mean. And then I also get why, because they didn't get Spider-Man until Civil War, but still. It feels like that's what they wanted to do. Like, that's the movie they wanted to make, was one where he's Spider-Man before Civil War. But, you know, that might just be me again that sees it that way. So, what I loved the costume. I think it's one of the best. It's the best costume we've gotten so far in all the Spider-Man movies. It's my favorite. It's the most comic accurate. The only thing I guess that's kind of is that Peter didn't make all that stuff himself. But when you look at his homemade costume, it feels like a natural progression that he might have gotten to himself eventually. And this is just Tony getting him to it early. And then from here on in, we can see Peter tinker with it and create things from it, which is awesome. I love Karen, the suit lady. I absolutely love that he has an AI that he talks to, because it's like a very natural replacement for his inner monologue that's in the comic books, because that's where a lot of Spider-Man's humor comes from, is from his quips, which he does the most in this one than he has in any of the other Spider-Man movies, but also his inner monologue, which is usually in itself hilarious. So his interactions with Karen get to be that kind of inner monologue thing, where we get to see a lot more of his humor, and that made me very happy. That's actually, I love Karen so much that at the end, when he gets the new suit, well, not the new suit, when he gets the suit back, I was kind of like, aw, I miss Karen. Why couldn't Karen just say hello before Aunt May comes in into the room? Which, I mean, Spider Sense would have been a good time to have that before Aunt May comes running in. But anyways, yeah, I love that. I love the suit. I love Karen, the suit lady. I like that we actually got to see him making his own web fluid, so that we know it was his thing and not Tony's, even though they say that in Civil War, but still. I like that there was that reminder there, so we know that it's not all Tony that's making him special. It's not just Tony's suit, which I guess is part of the plot of the movie in itself, that it's not just the suit, it's Peter. I liked his relationship with Liz. I'm glad that it didn't really go very far into the relationship-y love thing that we've seen in all the other movies, because it would have felt forced in the end. So I was very happy with what they did. I thought they did it very well. And I really enjoyed their relationship. I loved Ned. Ned was hilarious. Guy in the chair, loved it. I loved how they used Tony. I thought they used him just enough. I wouldn't have been upset at more, but I know that I might be in the minority in that. I really liked the Vulture. I thought he was great. He's one of the best Spider-Man villains since Molina's Doc Ock. I hope we see him back at some point. But I have a feeling if he does come back, he won't be a villain, which, I mean, he's a really good villain, so, And I really enjoyed Marissa Tomei as Aunt May, and I like how they pointed out how attractive she is often, like that everyone was in love with her and stuff. I thought that was hilarious. Because they're making fun at all the complaints people had when she was cast as Aunt May, that she was too young and too attractive, and they put it into the movie, and I really like that. I have no problem with her being young, because it makes sense that if he's a very young Peter, and like Ben and May are supposed to, one of them's supposed to be, well, Ben is supposed to be the sibling of Peter's dad, that if Peter's young, his parents would have been younger, so Ben and May would have been younger. I always felt like more like it was more like they were his grandparents than his aunt and uncle. So I liked they were kind of aged down as well when he was aged down. Plus it allows Aunt May to be around a lot longer, depending on how far they do go with the Spider-Man movies, which is A-okay with me. What else? I love how his suit, his homemade one, is very reminiscent of Ben Reilly's Scarlet Spider suit. I thought that was a nice little touch there. Even with, like, he's got the hood on the back of the sweater and everything. I thought that was cool. I enjoyed the ending fight scene. I could have done, like, without it being on the plane, or maybe less on the plane and more on the beach. But I get what, like, they want to go big, so I get why they did that. Now, that's everything I can think of off the top of my head. Well, supporting cast, Hannibal Buress was hilarious. I really enjoyed the Prowler, who was played by Donald Glover. I like what they did with him, especially the part with the interrogation. That was really funny. I like that they're introducing Miles early, because it leads into a little fan theory, or not even a fan theory, but a fan hope of mine, which I won't get into here because I know a lot of people haven't liked the ones I've talked to, at least haven't liked where I think, or where I hope the Marvel universe goes in the future, which involves Miles, Peter, all kinds of things. So I'm glad they're planting the seeds for that now. Post-credit scenes, I thought it was funny, the last one. I thought it was really funny, but it also made me mad because I sat there having to pee for like 10 minutes just for that, and it was, so I kind of see both sides of it there. While it was hilarious, it was also kind of irritating. I like that Vulture did not give up Peter's identity, and I am on the side that leans more towards it's because he's kind of going back to being more of a good guy than it is that he wants revenge himself, but that it's also like a quick reversal again for the Vulture. So he went from being he seems like a good guy. Of course, we don't know him. He could have been a dick from the beginning, and we just didn't see it in that short little prologue. But it felt like he went good, bad, good throughout the movie's acts. But again, can only really go on based on what we see and the hints in the movie. So I mean, it could have been a progressional thing over time, or he could have been a bad guy the whole time and just didn't. The prologue just didn't show it as much. But anyway, I'll stop. I'll stop on that point. Yeah, is it the best Spider-Man movie? Maybe. I watched Spider-Man 2 again, which for the longest time I did consider the best one, and it is a little dated. Like, the CGI isn't the best. I'm not a big fan of Tobey Maguire or Kirsten Dunst, especially their portrayals of the characters I wasn't huge on. And whereas in this one I felt like all the main people were pretty much spot on, except for the ones I mentioned, the two I mentioned. No, not even the two, just the one I mentioned. Like Michelle I was fine with. I don't know where they're going with it. I'll wait and see for her. Hopefully they'll do it fine. I mean, I have no reason not to trust Marvel at this point. So hopefully they do it right, but you know, at the time, from this alone, I'm not happy with the MJ thing. But other than that, everyone but Flash I was A-okay with. This is the best Spider-Man character in all the movies. Best Peter Parker, in my opinion, in all the movies. So right now, I would probably say it's right up there with Spider-Man 2, possibly surpassing it. But it's hard to tell, I guess because of how old Spider-Man 2 is, it being almost a couple of years away from being 15 years old. So I probably liked Spider-Man 2 more when I saw it originally. Like, if I was to compare my reaction then to that one and my reaction now to this one, Spider-Man 2 was probably better at the time. But now, I would probably say Homecoming is the best of them, the best of the Spider-Man movies, or it's right up there with Spider-Man 2. And I would probably give it an 8.5 to a 9 out of 10. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Spider-Man Homecoming. I tried to be not spoilery, but then I was driving and I just started getting into the spoilers, so my bad. I wanted to do a non-spoiler review, and I may put one up later. But yeah, this I guess would be my spoiler review of Spider-Man Homecoming. And I hope if you listen to these rambles that you got something from it. And I hope if you saw Spider-Man Homecoming that you liked it as much as I did. Okay, bye.